Yesterday, we heard from Zeke Lay of Newalla. He's building an underground home and hired Cliff Byler to construct the footing and the concrete walls. Well, Zeke was unhappy with the workmanship and refused to pay Byler until all the problems were fixed. Zeke fears he'll have leaks if Byler does not make repairs now, and Zeke's architect agreed. But he claimed Byler would not come back. Byler told me Zeke wouldn't let him come back, and he says he's filing suit to get his money. Cliff Byler said he'll come back years from now to make the job right. Not so, says Hazel Skidmore, who may have the only underground home in the Oklahoma City limits. It, too, was built by Cliff Byler and his son 5 years ago, but it took only 4 months for leaks to begin. Now, tell me what happened right up over here.
Well, this is where the water started leaking, and then you can see where it would fall it down, and then it dripped down here on top of this.
Into the fireplace?
Well, most of it dripped down into this area and then ran down like this and would drip.
So that's cracked?
Yes.
I see. Hazel and her husband are sick over the problems they have had, literally. Hazel says she's had leaks in both bathrooms. The one against the back wall was the worst.
When the rains came, the water just poured down and it soaked in here, and the carpet in the bedroom also was soaked because it just, and we'd get up and just mop and mop and mop and mop. So later when my husband cut this out and we wanted to see, and so we found out this vent pipe hadn't even been caulked or anything. So later on when we had it uncovered, we went out there and there was no kind of caulking on the outside or anything. It's just the plastic pipe was stuck through an open hole, and that's what it was.
You heard Hazel correctly. They had to uncover the house, dig it up at a cost of more than $6,000. Well, that was not all. The roof leaked in the garage, ruining the electrical box and the water heater. That had to be replaced. Hazel says Cliff Byler was contractor to build the whole house, and she alleges he left them hanging.
Well, we assumed a finished house would have the mirrors, and we figured that the cabinet would be beveled and it would be set down level, which it isn't, and we figured that he would come back and check and see if he had any flaws or something could be fixed, and we have called, and he never returned our call or anything like this, and the crack, which he was supposed to have fixed from the backside, well, after all these years it's still there and has never been fixed, and so we have hired other people to come in and fix the leaks and things like this, and the pictures that we've had, we have proof, you know, but he just never would answer or come back or anything like this.
Hazel alleges Cliff Byler left them with over $7,000 of expenses he was to pay for. She says they used up their savings to pay off Byler's subcontractors so they wouldn't put a lien against her house. Well, Hazel and her husband filed suit and won a judgment against Byler, but to this day they haven't been able to collect a cent. She alleges she knows other underground homeowners who also had problems with him. She says by telling her story on In Your Corner, perhaps she can prevent others considering underground homes from losing their savings as she did. But she claims that may be difficult because of Byler's newspaper ads offering $1,000 to anyone who sends him a customer. Following Oklahoma's primary election, artist Greg Burns contacted In Your Corner about what he called a voting ordeal, and he showed me what he was talking about.
They're real friendly. They're older people, and you know, I think they just don't quite understand. They just see a person out there struggling to get in, probably, and making it most of the time. And so, you know, I guess, you know, I almost feel like, you know, they're going to give me some kind of small applause or something when I finally get up there. There's a lot of drama involved in it. The most interesting thing, which I didn't know about, was all you have to do is ask for voter assistance. But nobody in our election place knew about it. They, and so anyway, that's why I called you.
I went to the state capitol to check into the voting procedure for the handicapped. State Election Board Chairman Lee Slater said there was a new law in effect just this year.
In effect, that applies to a particular category of physically disabled person, a person who can actually get to the polling place, but who cannot get inside the polling place to actually cast his ballot. Under terms of the new law, when there is a voter in that circumstance, two of the precinct election officials of different political parties are authorized to actually take all the materials outside the polling place and provide them to the voter for the voter to cast his ballot in the car or whatever once he's arrived at the polling place.
Slater said all the election workers had been informed of the new law. However, he said a handicapped person in need of help should send somebody inside and ask for assistance. So today we checked the procedure with Greg and his wife. Greg parked in front of his voting location while we watched from a parked car nearby.
Excuse me, could I talk to you a second?
After waiting several minutes, Greg summoned a passerby.
How are you doing today? I wonder if you might do me a favor. I'm handicapped and I need a little bit of assistance going in to vote, and I was wondering if you might be able to take this note in to an election official in there.
The gentleman, a Mr. McGuire, was happy to help out, and it wasn't long before a worker came outside, had Greg sign the registration list, then came back with a ballot for him.
All right.
Can you make your little X where you want to vote on those?
Okay.
On those two? I'll take this back in and I'll come right back.
Okay.
When you get through with it, fold it and seal it in that.
Okay. This is the whole deal here?
Yeah, that's
okay.
everything that you have to vote on.
Okay, thank you.
Now, Lee Slater, election board secretary, said 2 people were authorized to come out, 1 from each political party. However, this election worker told Greg that wasn't necessary. Afterward, we asked Greg how it went.
You know, she came out and had me sign the book, and then she took it back in, which that made me feel a little better. I didn't want to, have to stop the whole show.
Yeah.
But I think it's a pretty good idea. I would suggest that that the note is a good idea. That way you can give somebody a note. You can write that out beforehand, like I did, and give it to someone, and they can take it in, and I think it worked out pretty well.
Ruth Barnett and her husband rent the duplex next to them to a young couple who's lived upstairs for 3 years and a single woman who's lived downstairs for several weeks. The couple upstairs say their sewage bill shot up a few months ago, even though they split the bill with the downstairs tenant. The bill is getting to be more than they can afford. And Mrs. Barnett says they fixed the bathroom leaks downstairs. The water charge is normal, but the sewer charge is more than twice the water charge.
The sewage is much too high. I think the water is fine, and since they've gone up on the refuse, that is fine, because they do charge for 2 apartments.
Well, Ruth says the water part of the bill is $21, but the sewer charge is $55. That's what they can't understand. The rental is a duplex, but there's only 1 sewer line.
I don't have any idea. I tried to find out by calling the department, and they could not tell me, so they would have to be reevaluated. I can't quite understand what they meant by evaluating it at that time and that much water running through, or that sewage. I couldn't understand what she meant, really.
They wouldn't explain it to you?
She just couldn't explain it to me. She said it would just have to wait till next March or February, whatever, when they reevaluated it. Mm-hmm. And if the water had gone up or down, the sewage would go down.
I see.
I mean, that was my understanding.
Mm-hmm. I took the question to Ed Jones, city utility supervisor. Well, that's the key to the sewage bill. I learned water usage going up and down. However, it is based on water usage during the winter months, a low usage period.
It depends on how the billing cycle overlaps.
I see.
So to be on the safe side, we're actually looking at November through March.
Okay. And then that will decide your sewage rate for the entire year.
That's a fixed rate that remains throughout the year. Yes, that's correct.
Well, Ed says the sewer bill for the Barnett's duplex is based on the water usage of the tenants from last winter, and it will be measured again, beginning this month through March. So if the tenants keep their water usage low during these winter months, their sewer bill might go down for the rest of the year. However, Ed says we also had an increase in city sewage rates. July 1st, it was an increase of 54%. That also raised the Barnett sewer bill and everyone else's. The higher rates were because, he says, of federal government requirements in treating sewage. Father Donahoe told me that he was called to the home of a parishioner who had collapsed in the bathtub. Amcare was called, but had not arrived. So Father Donahoe called them again and was told they were on the way.
An ambulance was heard in the area, and nothing showed up. I called back, and I was told that there was one on the way. And then there was another waiting period, and then the fire rescue squad showed up. And some minutes later, St. Anthony's Coronary Care Unit showed up. And then towards probably 25 minutes later, Amcare ambulance showed up. And it was said that this ambulance came from Presbyterian Hospital.
Well, I checked with Amcare about the question and was told that the call for help came at a peak usage time. Larry Willis explained they keep an amount of ambulances on duty that will carry the normal load of calls. But that particular evening, there were several ambulances on emergency calls already, and the available ones were too far from the scene. So they sent a fire rescue truck and the St. Anthony's Coronary Care Unit. Both were closer. They all work cooperatively. St. Anthony's performed emergency procedures and transported the patient to the hospital. Well, that made Father Donahoe curious when he received the bill. The bill came from Amcare, which he said had not performed the rescue. Amcare arrived later as a backup, and the bill was made out to him, not the actual patient. Well, they did have the right address. Now, the patient is an Amcare member, so there should have been no charge. Well, I checked back with Amcare for an explanation. They say since Father Donahoe made one of the calls for an ambulance, they picked his name up from their dispatching office and thought he was to receive a bill. In further checking, they saw that St. Anthony's Coronary Care did the emergency work, so the patient would receive no bill from Amcare at all. Any bill would come from St. Anthony's. But since St. Anthony's works cooperatively with Amcare, they will honor the Amcare membership, but would collect from any insurance coverage the patient had. I also checked back on the case of Pam Lovin, a school cafeteria worker who called In Your Corner about a Bufferin pain capsule her husband almost took. She said her husband had been taking the capsules for pain from a back injury. When he found this capsule, he was afraid to take it in light of the recent scare in Chicago over Tylenol capsules. But Mrs. Lovin couldn't find anyone to examine it.
So I called the Narcotics and Drug Control first. Well, then they told me to call the Poison Control next. And then when I called them, they told me to call the police department.
What'd they tell you?
Well, the police department told me that I should take it to the nearest pharmacist and have tests run on it.
I found that there is an office of the Federal Food and Drug Administration in Oklahoma City. We showed them the capsule. They said it looked suspicious, but might be no cause for alarm. Well, the FDA sent the capsule to their lab in Dallas and reported back a week later that no cyanide was found and that the damage to the Bufferin capsule was probably caused in the factory. I went to look into the ticket problem for LaVoyce Taylor, who said she and her twin sister were going to celebrate their birthday by going to see the Tom Jones Show at the end of September in Oklahoma City. However, LaVoyce said she didn't want to make a trip downtown to Carson Attractions to buy the tickets, so she ordered them by phone on the Monday before the Saturday afternoon show, and it cost her $54 for 3 people. She mailed in her check, but the tickets never arrived, so LaVoyce called Carson Attractions for a refund, she said.
No problem that I would have to send a written letter stating that I did not get the tickets and a copy of the canceled check. It would be forwarded to Kansas City. And she said, don't worry about it. If you don't have the money by the 1st of November, she said, we'll take care of it. So I did wait till the 1st of November.
And then what happened?
And then I called back down there.
You still hadn't received the check?
I had not received the check.
Or
the money.
The money.
And she said, well, it's just too late. She said, you waited too late.
In fact, LaVoyce said when she called November 1st, the Carson Attractions manager said they didn't even have an office in Kansas City. She was unclear who told LaVoyce the refund request would have to go there. Well, I stopped in at the Carson office in the Myriad and asked manager D.G. Duggar about it.
As far as we know, the tickets were mailed to her. The show was a sellout. She did not call us before the show and say, I did not get my tickets, you know, what can I do? Because we do keep records of the tickets that we mail out. We could have put her in her seats. After the fact, come Monday morning, there's no earthly idea whether we know if those tickets were used or if she's just trying to pull one which not only happens, but this was a sellout show and you question things like that a little more so.
DG showed us the envelope that LaVoyce check was mailed in. It was marked that the tickets had been sent out. But DG says they do not like to send tickets through the mail. It's risky, like sending cash through the mail. However, if LaVoyce had called before the concert, DG says she still could have been seated. DG says she doesn't know who told LaVoyce that she could get a refund. Well, although we couldn't solve LaVoyce's problem, DG had some suggestions on ticket buying that might help others prevent such problems.
We prefer to hold the tickets and have them pick them up at the door, if they will do that. Because that way we know that we have the tickets, and then when they come Saturday night to a show, we have the tickets there for them.
So in other words, if they mail a check in, you still suggest that they, instead of having them mailed out, that they
pick them up at the door.
Pick them up at the door.
Right, rather than putting the tickets back into the mail, because we have a lot of problems with the mail system. I mean, these tickets were mailed out on Tuesday for a Saturday night show, and here it is, you know, almost 2 months later, she still hasn't received them, which unfortunately is not that unusual, and that's why we keep a record.
The viewers told me the Metro Airport Limousine service is contracted by Oklahoma City. They said the contract only allows the limousines to pick up and deliver passengers at businesses and hotels, no private homes. They said the service is owned by Larry Lucas, but the manager is a man named Pete Cox, and they allege Cox ordered them to pick up and deliver at private residences. The ladies allege he solicited sex from the lady drivers, offering them money. If refused, they allege they either quit or ended up getting fired. Clarence Johnson is the brother-in-law of Pete Cox. Clarence and his wife used to work for him, but now they want Cox removed from his position.
For the last year, since middle of '79, I have known and observed and seen and done it as an employee out there, as a subcontractor out there. We've picked up and delivered people to residences. There's two standards. The published standard is that we don't do it, but the drivers are well aware that if they don't pick people up as they're told or deliver people to residences as they're told, that they'll not work there anymore.
I was sort of subject to similar sexual harassment as the other women. Like he'd reach to look at my necklace and his hand would get heavier. He'd want to brush my bottom, something off my bottom or something, and I finally had to tell him, hey, that's it. And then it became a different type of double standards. Nitpicking, just total harassment. Well, you can call it mental harassment if you like. I was subject to this for quite a while. Plus, embarrassed in front of passengers, talked to like a dog on the radio.
Pete Cox offered me $100 to go to bed with him. And he kept offering more and more, as numerous of times, many a times. And he said that it would be like a business transaction, that he had a business transaction with a woman a year ago, and it lasted a whole year. And that it would please him very well. And I told him I did not go with married men, plus I went to church with his wife. And that made me in the middle.
They also showed me a signed statement from another former woman driver alleging similar sexual misconduct. As a result of that and the residential service, they started a petition drive to have Cox removed. They had dropped petitions at the mayor's office with copies for councilmen. They had gone through the police and to the State Human Rights Commission, but had received no response. Well, I wanted to get Pete Cox's side of the story, but first I had a producer call Metro Limousine and order a pickup at a private residence in Nichols Hills to see if they would pick up at a private home. The limo dispatcher said yes. I waited there, and sure enough, the limo arrived.
Hi, I'm Brad Edwards from Channel 4, and I'm wondering, are you allowed to make residential runs?
I don't know. I was just sent out here.
Who sent you out here?
Guy there by radio.
What's his name?
Probably just one of the drivers out there.
Is it Pete Cox?
Probably.
Has he ever sexually harassed you?
As far as like offering money, he does that to all the female drivers.
Has he done it to you?
Yeah.
Do you know that my office called here 2 times yesterday asking for a residential pickup, and the dispatcher told us that we could get them, and you know that we filmed one being done yesterday in Nichols Hills?
No, sir, I don't know about that.
That's correct. Did you dispatch those?
If I was on duty during that time, I possibly did, but I don't remember anything like that.
That was yesterday afternoon at 1 o'clock.
I was here at 1 o'clock.
Then you did dispatch a car to Nichols Hills?
Well, I'm not sure. I'd have to check my book and all that. I'm just not sure. I don't remember it at all.
Would you like to take a minute to check your book?
But I don't...
Pete Cox said his record book showed a pickup at 1 o'clock yesterday as the county building in downtown Oklahoma City, and not Nichols Hills. We also asked him about the charges of sexual harassment.
Mary and Clarence Johnson threatened me with just about everything they could, and said they was going to get even with me, no matter what they done. They was going to do it.
Why would they want to get even with you?
Well, because I fired her.
How about Rita Nelson?
Rita Nelson wanted to work an early morning shift. And I tried her on it, but she couldn't make the early pickups. And I told her, I said, now Rita, you're going to have to either start getting these pickups early in the morning, or you're going to have to quit. And she quit.
Business or an apartment house?
Yes, sir.
I see. Sharon Parker is one of several viewers who called in your corner about Payless TV repair. Sharon and her husband had taken their television set there in September to Payless TV to have some work done on it, but they've been without that set ever since.
He told us that within 3 days that we would have it back, so we didn't check in for 3 days. And then after that, my husband's been down there every day, you know, to see if he's there. Finally, he got a hold of the landlord, and the landlord gave us his name and told us that he was in jail for family problems.
Have you called the district attorney's office or anybody?
Well, we called our lawyer, and he told us the only thing that we could do was take him to small claims court. But first we had to find out his name and where he was at.
But that's the problem, finding the owner. Sharon had his name, Gary H. Bernard, but could not locate him. She said the landlord could not legally enter the shop because he said Bernard's rent was paid up for the month. The landlord thought Bernard had been put in jail. Sharon said she checked the jails here and in Norman with no luck. I looked around the Payless repair shop, but all I could find was a locked door and a TV repair van with out-of-date Michigan license plates. No clues as to the whereabouts of Gary Bernard. So I began looking into what a customer could do to get his television out of that shop. Well, Sharon Parker knows her television's inside there. She can see it through the window. The question is, how do you get it back? Well, the district attorney's office can't be of too much help there because this comes under civil law, not criminal law. So, number one, you could hire an attorney to help you, or you could do it yourself. First, you need to file what is called a replevin order at the small claims court offices on the 4th floor of the county courthouse. The paper will be served to the owner of the shop. But since no one could find the owner, I checked at the Sheriff's Office Criminal Division today to see if they had him in their records. Deputy Sheriff Steve Johnson found Gary Bernard's name, and we found him right there in a preliminary hearing for a sex offense. So the shop owner will not be going anywhere for a while, and the order for the return of the television sets can be filed on Bernard, even in jail, if necessary.
It's not steerable in reverse. Sorry, that would actually add too much onto the toy.
There we
Cost-wise.
go. Look. We're getting over that way.
Obviously, this is for a 7-year-old and Brad.
This is too advanced for me.
When you are ready to play, press the green start button.
Unfortunately, buying toys for Christmas is not as easy as pushing a green start button. There are so many to choose from, and there are so many considerations to take into account. Candace Irving of the Mattel Toy Corporation says not only are toys designed and tested to protect the child, now toys are designed and tested to protect the toy from the child.
The prototype model had little tabs that you could conceivably get your finger under and pull up on. So we said, okay, that's going to have to withstand, an X pound pull.
I see.
So they redesigned it to make sure that this was going to go all the way around. You weren't going to be as readily available to get a hold of it and pull up on it.
Yeah.
Push in on the speaker grill because the child is going to lean on this.
Yeah.
He's going to lean on here. He's not going to take into account that mom or dad paid $60 for this thing. Very good memory.
Oh.
Well, Van Cliburn, you're not, but hey, there's always next
that's
year.
True.
Right.
A working piano and even cosmetics now for the Barbie doll, which is in its 23rd year and comes with more accessories than ever. A safe enough toy, but there are some cautions to take depending on the child's age.
Barbie, for example, is age graded for ages over 3, and you think, well, what could be unsafe about Barbie? She's got earrings, she has little accessories. A younger child will put things in their mouth, and we don't want that to happen. So when you're shopping for toys, make sure that it's going to be age graded for your particular child. If it says for ages over 3, not only is it ability and capability, it's because of the small part danger too.
Candace says parents should look for a code on the toys to show that they are safety tested.
Well, there's something very important that parents need to look for on any toy package, and that's a notation that says something like safety tested, conforms to PS 7276. Now that part conforms to PS 7276 lets you know that that manufacturer has subjected that toy to 100 different design and test specifications to make sure that once it is on the market, it's going to be safe. We don't want something out there that isn't going to be safe. So the Consumer Product Safety Commission sent up this voluntary code, PS 7276, and most reputable manufacturers adhere to that code. But it's on the package in a prominent position, so that's a very important thing to look for, particularly if you don't have children in your home, saying you're buying for your grandkids or your nieces and nephews. It's going to let you know that that toy is going to be safe.